Hey, welcome back to the Bolus Maximus podcast. We have a really exciting guest here today. Stacey Sims, the world's worst diabetes mom, joins us. She's the host of the Diabetes Connections podcast, and she has a new book out and a new event coming up in January. Very excited to speak with Stacey. Thanks so much for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks, guys. I'm so excited to be here.
Good morning.
Hey, Brandon.
We for those listening, you got to know Brandon and I starting off this podcast on the low side. Hopefully he's had some sort of gummy bear or juice. But today we're speaking about Stacey and her position in the community as an outspoken member. She's a caregiver, right? A mother. And so we're really excited. She's a host of the award-winning Diabetes Connections, author of The World's Worst Diabetes Mom, Real Life Stories of Parenting Parenting a Child with Type 1 Diabetes, and then the upcoming Still the World's Worst Diabetes Mom. You've been calling yourself this for a long time, no?
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for starting a show when you're both low. And I'm like, does anybody need a juice box? Can I send you something? Right? I mean, everybody's got their stuff. Everybody's good, right?
We're good. We're good.
Yes.
So you can't be really truly the world's worst diabetes mom.
You're looking out, constantly looking out for two grown men who are probably would have needed that reminder at 7:30 and 8:30 in the morning to drink a juice box as we go on our busy lives. But
I'm sure you managed just fine.
Well, how do you do it? Your son was diagnosed in 2002 with type 1 diabetes. 2006 with type 1 diabetes when he was 2 years old. He's 17 years old now, senior in high school. That is probably one of the most nerve-wracking situations a mother could be in.
You know, it's funny. I don't know that I would call it nerve-wracking. It's a time where a lot is changing, right? We're transitioning. He was 2 years old when he was diagnosed. He wasn't yet 2, so we did everything. And then over the years, you have to transition to independence and all of that. The problem I'm having right now isn't with Benny, it's with me.
Yeah.
I really I'm struggling. And I did this with my daughter, I think, too, who doesn't have diabetes, right before she went to college. Your senior year of high school, you're kind of always thinking about that next year ahead. And my children are the kind of kids that go away to college. They both wanted to leave North Carolina where we live. The schools they're interested in are not a quick drive away. So in my head, I'm like, well, how are we going to do this in college? How are we going to do this in college? But we have been laying the groundwork for a very long time. Benny is very independent. So he's okay. It's me that I'm starting to have to work on. And that's tough. It's really tough.
Going into, oh, sorry, go ahead, Brandon.
I was going to say, well, you say tough, but I think everybody, living with diabetes is tough, but then the caregivers, and I think a lot of people don't give enough credit to caregivers simply because they're like, oh, well, you don't really have to do anything. And it's like, yeah, only if you really knew the worry and, the mental aspect of things, if you have a child in general, but then you have a child with a chronic illness. I don't think a lot of people, they give enough credit to caregivers.
I appreciate that. And I think a lot of that is because, as with diabetes, when you have it, most of the work is done behind the scenes, right? My friends who I've been friends with for 20, 30 years didn't see me when Benny was a toddler overnight. They may have seen me at a baseball game or at school, but when you're trying to make everything as normal as possible for your kid, which most parents of kids with type 1 do, you don't want to be running on the baseball field. Wait, you want to do it discreetly and calmly most of the time. You're not necessarily hiding anything, but you don't want to make it the center of attention as much as is possible. And I think that all contributes to, as you said, people don't really understand what goes into this. So then you get the situation where 4 years in, people are saying to me, oh, he must be super well regulated now. Oh, it's great that he was diagnosed so young because now he's starting kindergarten. I bet he can do it all himself. I run into people that I've known for a long time. Wow, Benny's going to go to college. I'm sure you guys have figured it all out. Isn't the new technology amazing? And he doesn't have to think about it. So, they don't really understand. Yeah. But at the same time, the reason you asked me about the world's worst diabetes mom, one of the reasons why I have gotten a lot of pushback in the parenting community is because since my kids were very little, and even after Benny was diagnosed with diabetes, I kept saying that I still wanted them to be as independent as possible, with the goal that they were supposed to grow up and leave my house.
Right.
Now that that's almost here, I'm not sure that was the right goal. But
goals change, right? Goals change.
but it really, I mean, that world's worst diabetes mom moniker is obviously, it's a joke,
Right.
but it's also, I don't do things in a way that are focused on perfect blood sugar numbers. We
Right.
were never taught that. We never focused on that. Benny was diagnosed before social media. So I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but I was always looking to raise like the holistic child, more than his A1C, more than his time in range, and also making all the mistakes so that he would learn to troubleshoot, not making mistakes on purpose, but taking advantage of when things went wrong
Allowing
to
yourself.
say, look, this all went wrong. You're fine. Think about it this way. Here's what you can do next time. And I think that really helps. So long-winded
Okay, so
answer.
did you have somebody guiding you with that thought process? Did you develop that as you grew into this diabetes world, with Benny? Or, was there somebody maybe that you knew, another parent that had somebody in their life, or a child in their life with diabetes?
Yeah, there are, I think were 4. It's funny, I haven't actually articulated this before, so I'm going to go through it as an exercise with you. I think there's 4 people that immediately come to mind. The first is our endocrinologist. We see Dr. Mark Vanderwell in Charlotte. And he's amazing. He had been an endocrinologist, I think, for a year and a half, maybe 2 years when we met. So we've all grown up together. It's amazing. But his philosophy was always, we're raising Benny not as a number, not as an A1C. We're raising him as a kid. We want him to be healthy now, but we want him to not burn out. We want him to understand this as he gets older. And we want him to live a full and healthy life. So he was never judgmental, and he was always helpful. Our amazing diabetes educator, Lynette Steinman, also in Charlotte, has 2 children with type 1, which makes all the difference. And her kids are now, I don't know, late 20s, early 30s. One of them is an endocrinologist, which is amazing. But they were diagnosed. I mean, you talk about, I said before social media, her kids were diagnosed before cell phones, and not cell phones for share and follow, cell phones for, hello, this is school and we're trying to track you down. Right. So you guys you're, I think, old enough to maybe remember those days when you couldn't be reached everywhere. Well, you're definitely not old enough for this. But when I was in high school and college, you'd say, hey, let's meet at the diner at 8. If you weren't there, you weren't there. You couldn't text your friends, right? Maybe you could use the payphone. Maybe you were smart enough to memorize the payphone phone number and you could call it sometimes. But, it was a different way of living. So she couldn't have contact, right, with the school or with baseball or whatever. There were no cell phones. So she gave us so many great lessons about troubleshooting, and it's going to be okay. Maura McCarthy, who is a very well-known author and journalist. She wrote Raising Teens with Diabetes. I found her blog right away. It's called Despite Diabetes. I don't think she writes it anymore, but it's all still there, and it's fabulous. And her daughter, Lauren, recently, I believe, celebrated 21 years, maybe a little bit more, with type 1. She was diagnosed in kindergarten, and she's a working professional, living out her dream, living independently. So Maura really helped guide me. She's become a great friend as well. She's the one who actually said, I gave that to Dr. Vanderwell, but she's the one who said, you're not raising an A1C, you're raising a kid. And that has really resonated with me.
Yeah, I love that.
And then my mom, who didn't know anything about diabetes, who probably still, couldn't really tell you the difference between a basal and a bolus. But when my son was diagnosed, we had a trip planned 1 month later, like 6 weeks later. We were supposed to go to Vegas with my college roommate and her husband, me and my husband. And my mom was babysitting. She doesn't live nearby, but she was coming up and making a whole long weekend of it. And I called her and I was like, I think we have to cancel, how can we go? And she was like, no, life goes on.
Yeah.
You have to figure this out because you can't stop your life. Let's figure this out. And that right at the beginning was like a demarcation of, oh, we can do this.
So you had multiple people echo the same.
Yeah, I think I might come up with more, but I think that as you ask that question, that's what popped into my mind. And boy, were we lucky to have all that.
It takes a village, right? It takes
No
a
doubt.
village. I mean, you listen those people off, the endocrinologists, the CDCES, as they call it now. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't have that, and I know, like I said, this diabetes thing, as we see this red orb glowing in the background, waking up low, dealing with so many different things, having those channels and those outlets for people to help you and assist you and let you know that it's going to be okay, especially from the very beginning. Like you said, the little one was diagnosed at right before 2. He's 17 now. And to be able to walk that path with somebody that was just on that journey with you, just getting started, I'm sure that's amazing to see where your son was and where he's at now. I mean, just blossoming like a flower.
It is amazing. And I think to your point, I always say, and it sounds ridiculous, like we're the luckiest people with type 1 you'll ever meet. We're such a lucky family. The first point, we do have access to great care. We have great insurance. We could afford all of this. So it was never a question that we would be okay in that respect. But what I found, I mentioned, like, we were diagnosed before social media, so we didn't have all the pressure and we didn't know that you're supposed to be perfect. But boy, social media and podcasts like yours, reaching people. I don't know about you guys. I'm sure this is the case. I find that sometimes my show is the only voice that some people hear talking about type 1. They live in a smaller community, or they live in a community that is not close to an endocrinology center. They have to drive 2 to 3 hours to see their doctors. So they don't have a tight community. There's no meetups in their town. So they're relying on guys like you to set it straight, to give them personal stories. My show's more newsy because I don't share a ton about Benny. It's not really my story to tell, although there's a lot that he gives me permission to talk about. But, that's why I think information that you all share, which is your personal stories, talking about waking up low and then having to do this podcast, it just goes a long way, because we're not medical professionals. But I really hope, and it's not a substitution for medical care, but I really hope that your voices are reaching people that need to hear it.
For sure. We definitely appreciate that.
I'll say this based on looking at the numbers. We were just talking about it. I know right now it's not. I can tell you that. I can tell you that for the most part, the people that listen to what we put out follow us on social media, but we can't go to the bench with, this fully structured, here's what we're doing, until we really get something under our feet. So I agree. I do hope it reaches those individuals, but right now, and then in this time, this is when we're making that push to do so. And conversations like these mean a lot. So I would say, it's great to hear that perspective. We need to hear more from caregivers. But I've had, I'll have lunch this afternoon with an individual, what I'm very excited for, but, working with kids from the inner city, looking at the Hispanic community, children of color that are living in a concrete jungle and don't know how to get out into nature. And that those are really important things. That's where our money here that we raise is going, is to send kids to camp, to make sure
That's
that
great.
they have those experiences, build those relationships. Did you push Benny to become part of the diabetes community? Because you are.
Yeah.
You are, in a really big way. Is he?
It's a great question. Okay, so I'll start at the end. The answer is yes, but no. Benny, I just told him, hey, our local diabetes camp is doing a teen weekend. They haven't done this for a long time because of COVID, but every fall they'd have a teen weekend and a retreat. And he's like, I'm not going to that. Like, he's done. He's just done with diabetes camp for now. The last time he went was 2019. And he's not close friends with those kids. He sees them, they're friendly, but he doesn't even realize how much diabetes camp changed his life. Benny has been in the diabetes community since he got diabetes. I have been a part of the community in a weird way before his diagnosis, because I worked in Charlotte area media. I was a radio host and a TV reporter. We do MC stuff, like we'll show up at events and, hey, thanks everybody for being here. It's great to see you. So I was the MC of the JDRF golf tournament for many years, and I knew all these families. And so when Benny was diagnosed, I had people to call and say, what the heck? Like, I remember Ethan was really fun. He seemed happy, right? Maddie seemed normal. Is she really? Like, what do I do with this? So I had kids and families to call, and he had kids to, like, kind of I wouldn't say mentor him, but like we would go to the walks and these teenagers would be like, Benny, you're so cute. Here's my pump site. And so it was amazing. We have a day camp in our area. It's a weekend. It's not really a day camp, but it's enough that our endocrinology practice puts on. And you can go when you're 4 years old. So he went, and I'm the worst mom. So I was like slowing down the car, like, get out. I'm not worried about you one bit. I wasn't worried about him at all. We knew the people at the practice. And I love camp. I went to camp as a kid. My husband went, my dad went. Camp's a big part of our family. So I knew that sleepaway camp was something we wanted to try. He went to diabetes sleepaway camp when he was 7. It was a year early, but it's the same people who run the day camp, and they thought he's big and they thought he was a year older. So that whole summer, they're like, you're going to come to this, to Camp Carolina Trails next summer. You're going to come. And he was like, I'm ready to go. And I signed him up, and they were like, he's too young. And I was like, you can take him. It's fine. So they did. So he doesn't even remember how much of a difference that made for him. And it really did. I have interviews with him that I did when he was 7, 8, and 9 years old. And then it allowed him to kind of get the skills and get the confidence to go to what I call regular, like non-diabetes sleepaway camp, which is what he's done every summer for a few weeks since he was 8. And this past summer, he spent 2 months at this camp, non-diabetes camp, as a CIT. So diabetes camp has really allowed him to do a lot. It's given him a community that is there when he needs it. And he's also made incredible relationships with the counselors and the staff. Benny's one of these kids, we all know kids like this, right? They kind of gravitate to the adults for some reason. And so he just had dinner the other night with one of the counselors from diabetes camp. He keeps in touch with a lot of these folks. So he is part of the community, but not like me. I'm always on the phone with my mom friends. I organize meetups in the Charlotte area. It means a lot to me. And I still feel like I need it for every new phase. He's the kind of kid I'm not sure I want him to join like a college diabetes network chapter when he goes to college. I'm not sure he will, but I know that he'll at least know that it's there, because he's going to forget something. I mean, no offense to you guys, but there's going to be a day when he's like, oh my God, I have no insulin. And the girl with the purse is going to be like, I have it all. What do you need?
It happens. It happens. There's so many different things going on. I like the fact that you mentioned that you went to camp growing up. And I think, some people, when they look at it like, oh, well, diabetes camp, it's different than regular camp. It's different in the sense of everybody has diabetes and the counselors have diabetes, but other than like activities and things that you would do those at a normal camp. I went to camp growing up before I had diabetes. And then once I got diabetes, I ended up speaking at a lot of camps. And I realized the only difference is everybody has diabetes at the camp, which is cool, because if you're a kid and you don't know anybody that has diabetes, you're making friends with these individuals. Like you said, your son may not be best friends with a lot of these individuals, but the fact that the camp was able to help change his life and see it from a different perspective, I think that that's very important. And then also another thing is, you said that he sat down with a counselor and had dinner. I think they're trying to recruit him to be a counselor. That might be, that's a real thing. So, if he has that type of relationship and counselors, coming from coaching in sports, you see those things, and maybe he's not all in as a kid. And maybe from the other side, maybe from a mentor side, he may have something there. He may get a little bit more involved than you think, Mom.
That'd be great. I would love that.
So in the grand scheme of things, you have your son. Let's use him as a sample here. Sorry, Benny. But he's a young man who lives with diabetes. He's interested in getting involved in the community. He's working, through these camps and individuals that he's met in these experiences. On the flip side of the spectrum, we've got the Diabetes Connection presents Mom's Night Out. What's going on over there? I'm guessing maybe wine. Is that if my mother was attending this, she'd bring the box, not the box of wine, the box of all the bottles of wine, because
I am so excited that you have mentioned this. So I'm doing a new event. It's called, as you said, Diabetes Connections presents Mom's Night Out in the Charlotte, North Carolina area in January. What happened was, I'll tell you the whole long story. My next book is coming out in the fall. And in the past, there's been a lot of events, right? JDRF and other groups have done a lot of in-person events, and COVID changed everything. So for the first book, I had a whole book tour. the end of 2019 through 2020, twice a month at least, I was going to different events. And of course, in March of 2020, that all stopped. So when I was looking around for kind of a, what can we do to kick off the book? How can I go to different events? There's a lot of virtual stuff, which is great, but it seems like a lot of chapters have stopped in person. And I feel like we need that. And we want to do it safely, right? We want to be smart about this, but I really wanted to do that. So I thought about a little dinner out, or a little, as you said, like a cocktail hour. And years ago, I've run a mom's group in Charlotte for many, many years. And years ago, I used to do what I call technology nights, because I got frustrated that there was no place to go and look at new pumps and CGMs and all that stuff, right? Especially if you don't have an amazing educator or things like that. Like, how are you going to see all this? So I don't believe I used to do this. I used to call all the groups, Medtronic and Tandem and, Animus when it was back in the day, and Omnipod, and let's go at this hotel lobby. And you bring some food and I'll bring the people. And we did it all for free. Like, I was just, come on in, guys. And it was fabulous. And I always thought somebody should do that again. Nobody ever did it. So I just created a mini conference for this event. So it is going to be like what you'd see at one of a, summit or conference, where you'll be able to meet vendors and see all the technology. We are going to have a cocktails and crafts hour. You do not have to drink any alcohol. There'll be some fabulous non-alcoholic options as well, but there will definitely be some wine. And then we'll have dinner. And then the next morning, we're going to have breakfast, coffee, and a speaker. And that's really it. And people can socialize. I want to give lots of time for people to meet each other and socialize. I'm so excited about it. And we've got, depending on when this airs, I don't know, but we will have the ticketing page is going up in the next week or two. The save the date page is already there. So if you go to diabetes-connections.com and click on events, you will see it in whatever form it is ready to go. And we have a bunch of people signed up already to save the date. So I'm really excited.
We'll put what production can start this afternoon for this podcast. Brandon and I, it's great to hear that, right? And when you put on a production like this, it's important to have a team. Who's helping you do this?
So I do have an event planner.
It's just that the world's worst diabetes mom just made the world's evilest laugh.
Well, I laugh because I don't know about you guys. Like, I have a problem with farming things out, right? Especially with diabetes, you want to be really careful because people don't speak the language. They don't really understand. A lot of times when I do events like this, and I do meetups once a month for my local moms and dads, any parents who want to come, grandparents, whatever. And if I tell the restaurant or I talk to people about it, like, oh, that's so sad. Like, oh, are you guys okay? And it's kind of like, I get it, but no, this is kind of a nice thing. Like, this is a joyful thing. This is a hangout kind of thing. And yes, we all cry and there's a lot going on, but I did find a fabulous event planner to help me with the actual event, the venue, the food. I don't know anything about this stuff. But no, in terms of doing everything else, in terms of getting sponsors, in terms of booking the speakers, everything, it's me. Just like with the podcast, I have an editor, but I'm the guest booker. I'm the producer, just like you guys probably.
That's what Brandon calls me. That's what he refers to me. He's like, I got an editor. I got a guy that does that. He chops it
right.
up.
I got a guy.
I know a guy. Hey, I know a guy. And if I don't know a guy, that guy knows a guy.
So that's awesome. I'm super excited to hear about that. And I'm very glad. Thank you for mentioning, because we were going to ask us where the dads at, that is definitely something maybe we'd have to partner on in the future. We have thought a lot about, in the grand scheme of things, individuals like your son, Benny, are our goal, our target, right? Young men, because there isn't necessarily a path either for education outside of the hospital and the doctor's room and your parents' living room or your bedroom, where you get talked to and reprimanded, where it feels like it's this constant thing. You need that support. You need that, that. And obviously, as we've just heard, it's found in different aspects of life, going to camp and so these different experiences. So what I'm getting at is, for the most part, in North Carolina, from what you've done, how diverse has your group been or grown? How has diversity looked in your group? And I'm not asking you, right? Like, I'm just saying, like,
yeah, it's a fabulous question.
Yeah. And has that changed?
No, it hasn't been diverse enough.
Can I Can
Yeah,
I
hit
say
me.
something? And I don't want to cut you guys off, but I feel like, okay, so I'm 17. I'm diagnosed with diabetes. My mom needs somewhere to go. My mom needs somewhere to go. Would she feel comfortable being in that setting that you've created, like Mom's Night Out? Would she be able to get that invitation and feel comfortable going there? If that
Yeah.
makes sense.
It makes perfect sense. I think the answer is, I don't know. I hope so. Right. I'm actually much more cognizant of the fact that we have more work to do there. So when I put out the materials, I'm trying to make sure that the photos are diverse, right? Doesn't all look the same. The group itself is, started in 2013. So, right, it's 9 years old, the Facebook group where people get most of the information in the Charlotte area. We do have a lot of diversity there. We have, Charlotte is a city. So we've got we've got different nationalities. We have people who move here. So it's great. It's really nice that way. But I am the admin of the group. I am the leader of the group, right? The diversity that I bring is that I'm Jewish, right? I'm not, so not being Christian around here is a pretty big deal. But I look like I'm from North Carolina, right? So I do worry that if you see like the blonde, could be Bama Rush, could be, I don't know, but it's a great question. And I do talk to people in the greater diabetes community about it. You're not the first person to ask. I think it's a fabulous question. How do we get more diversity? I think a lot of it is, all right, I'll say this, but I know how it sounds kind of lame. I try to talk to the people in my group who don't look like me and say, like, what can we do? But you don't want to put all the burden on them either, because that's probably what they get every day. So like, how can you help us, help
Right.
you?
Right.
But we're lucky that the endocrinologists in our area, they know enough about the Facebook group. They put people in there all the time. Like when a kid gets diagnosed now, we've been around for a long time. And I'm also a very tough admin. There's no nonsense. There's no snake oil. It's a good group. It's a supportive group. We have lots of diversity of thought. We have political diversity. You can be low carb, high carb, no carb, whatever carb. I don't care. You have to be nice.
No judgment.
Love carbs.
Right. But we have a mom, bless her heart, who makes her own Fruit Loops.
Wow.
Fruit Loops. You know how much work that takes?
Wow.
Yeah, she's going to grow out of that soon. But she wants her kid to be
those.
super low carb.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, we've proven that we're a good group and we're respectful. So people come in all the time.
Yep.
But it's a great question. And I think, Brandon, what I'm going to find out is, as I do this event, I'm hoping to hear more about how people found it and how we can do more outreach. The endocrinology offices are really my best bet, because they've got to see those people, right? They've got to see the people with diabetes, got to see the people who are the doctors, is what I mean. Like they've got to go those places to get their insulin. So Raleigh, Charlotte, Greenville, South Carolina, Hickory, Winston-Salem, all of those local places, I'm putting out stuff to please come to this event.
Fantastic.
Got it. No, and I appreciate that. I think you said a lot of stuff in there, but I think something that stands out is like, sometimes asking the individuals on like what can be done. That can be a lot, because like you said, they hear it all the time. Like, what can we do? What can we do? And sometimes it falls on deaf ears, because it's like people do voice what can be done and then nothing happens. And this is just coming from personal experience at the end of the day. But no, like I appreciate that and what you said, because at the end of the day, like we want to, and if there's anything that me and Matt can do I know we're miles and miles away, but anything that we can do to kind of help that diversity realm or get more people involved, so you can spread. And the Facebook group, that's amazing that you are in there very actively and managing it and making sure there's no nonsense, because there are a lot of groups that are out there that I've been in and heard about. That is some crazy stuff that goes on in those groups. And
I was an admin for 7 months before I gave up. I was like,
well, I will tell you the trick. The trick to my local group is that it's local. So there is a chance you could run into one of these people at the grocery store,
Yeah.
right? So that makes it a little bit harder to be super nasty.
Hey,
Yeah.
what's up, Bob?
Yeah, you're not
Posted-
faceless and
yeah.
nameless. You have, we know who you are.
Which is a lot
you know,
different than normal social media engagements,
Exactly.
because it's like it's just a screen name and a picture. Fantastic. Well, I appreciate it. Right, it's a tough question. I'm glad we were able to ask you. And
If I could say one more thing about it
Yeah,
for
please.
listeners,
Yeah.
I think especially for people who look like me, I think one of the biggest hurdles for us who are well-meaning is we're sometimes afraid to have frank conversations because we're afraid of saying the wrong thing, right? Like you're almost afraid to say, hey, hey, mom, who is Black or brown, I need to reach more people who look like you. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. I'm afraid of making a misstep, like even saying the words Black and brown.
Yeah.
Right. It's a hard thing to do because we all we're nice. We want to say nice things. We don't want anyone to be uncomfortable. But, when I say people like me, like, let's be clear of what we're talking about, right? Let's be clear about what we're looking for. And, it's very difficult to get past that uncomfortableness. I think that's the hardest part. And I try to, I've talked about this many times on the podcast because obviously access to care is different because of color. And, people will say diabetes doesn't know the color, whatever. The medical community sure does. So, we need to get past that. And sometimes having these uncomfortable conversations, if you're well-meaning, people know you're well-meaning, right? You're never going to accidentally say something horrible if you're not a horrible person. So take a deep breath. Tell the person you're talking to even, I'm really uncomfortable with this, but I'm trying, and go for it. I've never had a bad situation. I mean, I know I might sound really arrogant and overconfident by saying that, but I think it's the uncomfortableness that we just don't want to push through. But once you get past that, it really is so much better.
It's a
comes
great
down,
point.
it
Yeah.
comes down to the intention, right? And this is something I brought up to Matt. I said, you're my guy because if somebody's white looking at you, talking about the things that you talk about with people of color, Black people, they'll look at you like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, but it's like you're coming from a good space and you feel comfortable talking about it. And like you said, if you feel uncomfortable and you're talking to somebody about it, let them know that you're not the most comfortable or confident talking about it, but you want to help to make that change. And I think sometimes how people perceive it, how it's coming out that aren't maybe white or the color that they're not talking about, they look at it like, well, maybe this person does really want to help, or they'll look at you like, oh, maybe they don't, maybe it's just lip service. But I think at the end of the day, it's all about the intent, the intent on you trying to do something. And if somebody can't see that, then it's like, that's a lost cause. You can't do anything about that, so.
We just talked about this the other day. I attended an event. I mentioned it already. Shout out a nonprofit called Camping to Connect. These individuals taking the young men from the inner city out into camping in different parts of the East Coast, I think, right now. But anyways, I went to an event where they premiered a short documentary film, 20 minutes of absolute pure, like, I cried. There wasn't probably a dry eye in the room, right? And you heard these very resounding stories from kids' mouths while they're experiencing it, and it was very touching. And then there was a time to ask some questions. For the most part, though, afterwards, I could tell that when I was having these conversations, that the reason I stood out wasn't because I had a rainbow tie-dye t-shirt on, but it was probably because I wasn't scared of telling these individuals, putting my hand out, shaking hands and saying, this is exactly what my nonprofit is doing.
Yeah.
This is what we're focused on. And so I'm glad you brought that up, and it's really important, because if these conversations don't happen, like, so much is lost, and needs, please. So, I had one more question for you here, Stacey, before we let you go this morning. And very curious about what your son is about to become an adult. Do you feel like you're still good? Are we going to hear your podcast for another 500 episodes?
Oh,
Or
We want to. So like, I mean, I know I messed
500
up and
more.
I said 3 earlier, so
500
apologize.
more. Sorry.
it's a great question. I did not expect when I started in June of 2015 to be doing this for this long. I kind of started it to see what would happen. And I love doing it. I don't know. I mean, it's never been about Benny, so it makes it easier to think about continuing. But, podcasting changes. My life is about to change. And I say podcasting changes because when I started podcasting in 2015, it wasn't even an app on your phone. It was,
Yeah.
downloaded from the computer. I mean, it was crazy. But my daughter is this year, my daughter will graduate from college and my son will graduate from high school. So I'm in a new part of my life. I mean, I'm in that empty nest about to start. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. So, and I've kind of switched careers a bunch of times. I mean, I've always been in broadcasting, but I was a TV reporter for 10 years. I was a radio show host for 10 years. A couple of extra years on that where I did some commercial voice work and some other stuff for local TV. And then I did podcasting, which is in its 8th year. So it's almost time to start pivoting and thinking about other things. I would like this Mom's Night Out to be an enormous success, and I'd like to replicate it in cities across the country. That's the big goal.
Cool.
I don't know that I can do that without also doing the podcast, just from an advertiser and sponsorship, just the way that everything makes money. And I hate to say that, but that's kind of, I wish I had enough money to float all these projects, but I did not win the lottery.
Yeah, it's expensive to put on events, and
right.
Brandon and I are both well aware of this situation, and we're gonna put this out before Mom's Night Out, 100%. I'm telling you that right.
Thank you.
I know the guy that does it. So we'll put this out before Mom's Night Out so we can get that word out. And then we also want to help make sure that, it does reach the ears and eyes of individuals who may have not seen it on social media. I did a lot in advertising and marketing and thinking of out of home, right? Where might you see this if I didn't intentionally float it to your device?
Yeah. And if I could also just say with still the world's worst diabetes mom, which will be out in the fall, I very intentionally added more advice in this one. The first book there's a lot of advice in there, but it was very much geared to be kind of funny and lots of humor and mistakes, which is great. And I think it's a very good first book if you're newer diagnosed, if your kid's been diagnosed within the last year. Still the worst, I'm a little nervous about it because I got a little bit more confident and I give a little bit more advice about some mistakes I think people make in terms of social media, in terms of assuming that there's only one way to do things. And so there are chapters in there about, not sharing all of your kids' numbers, about not showing photos of every stage of diabetes, including the ones where your kid's not at their best. There's a lot more in that book that I'm a little nervous about the reaction I'm going to get. So I really appreciate just like that little time to say it. But I also think to our previous conversation, my experiences are not that of everybody, right? As we said, there's a lot of diversity, there's a lot of regional stuff. I tell these stories about we go to Disney World or we did this other thing or my kid got a job. There's lots of things that are different family to family, age to age, but there's a lot of universal stuff in there, I think from a parenting perspective that I hope will help people let their kids grow up and be independent and confident.
Or right from the start, there's a vulnerability aspect that I think individuals hope to aspire to, right? When you're writing books about not your whole family, and Brandon and I have said this a lot, it's a family disease, right? The whole family has this disease. Congratulations, Mom, because wow, empty nest, like we said, but at the same time, right, there's still a lot to process. There's still a lot going on. Highly recommend getting one of these glucoses here because look at now they're green, right? They were red before. Check it. What up?
Oh, I didn't know what that was. That's a glucose. I was like, I saw the red. I thought it was we were recording. It was because you guys were low.
I mean, we are on the air, but that wasn't what it was for. But
It's
See, now, okay, I know we're going to run long, but I have to get my little momism in on this.
yeah, here.
See, I'm a little concerned about the proliferation of blood glucose numbers everywhere in a home, right? If you've got a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old, that might be a really good thing. You've got it on the TV screen, you've got it on your watch, you've got it on your phone, you've got it on the kitchen table with a big screen, But if your 11-year-old is seeing that everywhere, it's a little much. So, they don't want to see their numbers everywhere. They don't want their business being everywhere. And I like the glucose. I'm not endorsing them. I don't know anything about them, but I like the idea of it. It's discreet, right? It's kind of fun. Not everybody has to know what it is. If your 11-year-old still hates it, please listen to them and respect them. But it's kind of cool. I wish I knew what that was earlier in the background. I thought it was like a red recording light.
I'm
That's
glad
so
I said
funny.
it. Yeah, I'm glad I mentioned it because you could see when you first joined. I mean, Brandon's was kind of slowly blinking.
It was flashing
Yeah,
red.
I saw it flashing.
So that was an urgent
camera.
that was an urgent low. Yeah.
So it is.
If I had known, we wouldn't have been recording, gentlemen, until the juice kicked in.
It's all right.
Sometimes kids lie about blood sugars. Oh my God.
We didn't lie. We just jumped into it.
So yeah, so the glucose has been fantastic, right? And it's something I've used for pretty much all of COVID. Like I've had it in my life for a while now. And thanks to Brandon, because that connection we made a while ago, and it was something like, let's test these. And then I was like, I'm not trying to live without this. So to have this around and in that very parental way, it is very busy in the home, and to have that constantly flash, the numbers, look at the watch and say, no, you're too, you're 87 or you're 55 or you're 204. It's numbers. I have a painting that reflects that. I firsthand can say, as an artist, as somebody that really resonates with colors, my mind has been put at ease.
That's awesome.
And it's the type of thing that, like, if I was a parent and my kid was at school right now, this would still be, showing what he is. So for anybody listening, there's more information here below the details, and it's called the glucose. But we've been working with them and really excited to share. They're only working with the Dexcom G6 as of right this second. Plans to expand in the future, but realistically, a different way to soak in how important it is to have that number all the time. So we really appreciate this. Was a great conversation. I'm very excited for us to get this out into the ears of listeners. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've got all the information here below, the details for your website, and
wait, hold on, man. Let her say it. If she wants to go ahead and drop those plugs, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of that.
It's fine. Diabetes-connections.com is the way to go. You can get the podcast, you can get the book, you can get the event, you can be sick of me, you can all of that at diabetes-connections.com, and then my social stuff. But yeah, I've actually, one of the nice things you can do if you go to the website is, especially if you're not on social media a lot, or you're trying to escape from Facebook, is sign up for the newsletter. That goes out once a week. I don't spam you, but it's just a good way to keep in touch if you're trying to leave social media. It's so hard.
We're big fans of the newsletter. Yeah, I was gonna give her the opportunity to say all that. Brandon,
She's a professional. You see that? Go to the website. You got everything there. Boom. Bam.
You guys are great. I love it.
Fluff to make sure that individuals can make it there. I was gonna just re-plug Mom's Night Out and let everybody know, if you're interested, please reach out to Stacey. There's a lot of ways to get involved, and yeah, super excited. We're gonna have to follow up once Benny is able and willing.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna ask him if he will talk to you. I'm not sure I'd want to be here. He's a mess. I mean, I love him so much, and I'm confident he's going to be safe. What do I mean? That's another podcast. He's great, but he doesn't do it how I would do it. Right?
Yeah.
He doesn't do it how I would do it.
All right, Sims family, take two. We're going to follow up with Benny, and that's the next conversation. And then, honestly, in the future, we'd love to follow up and find out more about Mom's Night Out. So, Stacey, thank you so much for your time this morning. Really,
thank you for everything you do. You're fabulous. Love you guys.
We appreciate it. Thank you so much.
As always, keep it 100. Peace.